It's Hillary's big moment on the final day of the Democratic convention. In just a few hours, Clinton will take center stage here in Philadelphia to formally accept her party's nomination for president. It will be a first for a woman in our nation's history. But before the balloons drop, Democrats launched blistering attacks against Clinton's opponent last night. Speaker after speaker ripping into Donald Trump, including President Obama, Vice President Biden, Michael Bloomberg, and Clinton's running mate, Tim Kaine. Watch.
Trump is a guy who promises a lot. Believe me. It's going to be great. Believe me. We're going to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it. Believe me. We're going to destroy ISIS so fast. Believe me. There's nothing suspicious in my tax returns. Believe me.
I'm a New Yorker, and I know a con when I see one.
He's trying to tell us he cares about the middle class. Give me a break. That's a bunch of malarkey. This guy doesn't have a clue about the middle class. Actually, he has no clue, period.
I have to say I know plenty of businessmen and women who've achieved remarkable success without leaving a trail of lawsuits and unpaid workers and people feeling like they got cheated. Does anyone really believe that a guy who spent his 70 years on this earth showing no regard for working people is suddenly going to be your champion, your voice?
Will the line of attacks be effective? Now, Dana, it looks to me like they're really aiming at working-class white voters who didn't go to college. I say that because right now Donald Trump is up 53-28 with people, white men who didn't go to college, but he's behind Clinton 47-37 with men who did go to college. So is this line of attack effective?
Well, I think we'll have to wait and see because we don't know exactly. I think that what the two conventions have done is that they've ended the primary process, okay? And it said we have accepted this is going to be our nominee, even though there were people who, on the Republican side, who said we're not going to be for Trump. They ended that week being, for the most part, behind Trump. Same here, you know, Monday and Tuesday, very divisive on the floor. But then last night, being in the arena, you saw the Democrats that came together. So they came home as well, for the most part. I mean, maybe 88 to 90% on both sides. And I think that what they've done is broken the Bernie fever. They have set the record straight from their point of view on the Obama administration. There are quibbles, but that's what they were going to do. They tried to define the opponent in Donald Trump. And this line of attack, I think when you start to see some of the ads coming out, we'll see how effective they are. But I will tell you this. I think that Joe Biden in the state of Pennsylvania, his home state, could be very helpful to Hillary Clinton in at least trying to keep Pennsylvania in her corner if she can. Because Donald Trump had a rally in Scranton, Pennsylvania last night. Apparently, like, blew the roof off the place. They loved him there. That's Biden's hometown. That it is in his blood. So if he can get there and at least hive off some of them from going to Donald Trump because they're Democrat-leaning, blue-collar people, he'll probably be very helpful for her there.
One line of the criticism I heard repeatedly, Eric, I think you saw a little bit of this in the soundbite from Tim Kaine, is, hey, do you really believe that he's not hiding something in his tax returns? Former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg says, I'm a New Yorker. I know a con game when I see one. What do you think?
Well, look, so taking the list, Panetta got shouted down, no more wars, remember that? So that was a little bit of a negative. I think Michael Bloomberg was effective last night. I was watching him, and, you know, he coming from one New York billionaire attacking another one, I understand what he was doing, but I think he was effective. Joe Biden, you got the typical Joe Biden. He was pretty good. Tim Kaine was boring to me. I thought he just flopped completely. And then President Obama came on, and I think he was extremely effective. But the problem is, if you listen to President Obama, you heard him reference himself over 100 times. I think it was something like 116 times he referenced himself. And that's, you know what that is? That's a dog whistle to everyone out there. It should be that if you want another term of Obama, elect Hillary Clinton because you're going to get more of the same thing. So I think last night was their most effective night, and they probably will get a bump from it. But I would think that Donald Trump speaking, he's going to speak again tonight in the state of Pennsylvania. I think this is an important state, and I think he's holding his own. Yeah. If he holds Pennsylvania, I think he's got this thing locked up.
Wow. Kimberly, I was so curious to hear President Obama, you just heard Eric talking about that address. President Obama said that his grandparents, Kansas folks, they didn't like bullies and braggarts and show-offs. They liked people who delivered and who you could trust and rely on. Is that effective in your mind?
Yeah, I think it is effective. I mean, obviously, President Obama is one of the best orators and best presidential orators, certainly of our time, and that I've had been able to listen to. I think he did an effective job for her last night. In my opinion, he was probably the best one. And then the fact that Bloomberg came out to support Hillary and was there and gave it obviously a very well-prepared speech, that was helpful for her. But at the same time, we recall the news cycle yesterday was so heavily occupied up until you had the heavy hitters come to take the stage last night. It was dominated by Donald Trump, by the press conference and the press conference the day before at the VFW. So I think tonight she's got to deliver. I don't think Tim Kaine did much of anything to help her. I think when he accepted as the VP, when she introduced him, he was good. He was charming there. But last night fell flat and was a little bit Howard Dean weirdish when he kept doing like the believe me thing. I don't know. It was just, that didn't work for me.
All right, so I wanted to ask you, Greg, what you thought of the imitation when he was imitating Donald Trump.
It was terrible. It was so bad that I wanted him to stop. It was bad. But I want to talk about Obama's speech because a lot of people believe his speech was great. But my favorite part was when he says, our power doesn't come from some self-declared savior promising that he alone can restore order. This is from the man who claimed you could stem the rising tides. This guy positioned himself as Moses 8 years ago. He also made an incredibly strong case for an exceptional country, this glorious melting pot. But for the past 8, speech would have been unnecessary if he and his party hadn't been stirring that melting pot with divisive rhetoric. He created Trump. Their divisive rhetoric created Trump. Then I love this other part where he said about Trump, which got a lot of laughs, he's not really a facts guy. Well, who else isn't a facts guy? President Obama is for climate change, has never mentioned a fact. Law enforcement, he talks about law enforcement. He ignores the facts that have come out regularly disputing his beliefs. Islamic terror, he ignores the facts about that. He is the king of feeling. Nothing more than feeling for for Obama. So he's a hypocrite for calling Trump on these things. I looked at Biden. I thought, man, he was great. I think that Democrats watched that speech like a bachelorette, realizing that the runner-up, they should have picked the runner-up. and it's like, why did I pick this guy and not this guy? Because I thought he was really good.
All right, so Greg, I know you care so deeply about the terrorist issue. One of the lines of attack was, this guy is the least prepared person to deal with national security. That was Vice President Biden. And then you had a Vice Admiral from the Navy, John Hudson.
He was good.
And he said, one of the things he said was, Donald Trump couldn't polish John McCain's shoes. And he's, of course, referring to the fact that Trump went after McCain as a loser and all that. Well, how did it strike you?
I think that a fair criticism, except if you are right on the big picture, you can find people to solve this issue. Trump is right on the big vision about Islamism. He can talk about Islamism. He can talk about the dangers of migration. If you are right on the big picture and you don't know the specifics, you can get the specifics. The problem with the Democratic Party, they are wrong on the big picture. That means they can never be right about the specifics.
But Eric, what Rear Admiral Hudson said was, Donald Trump is a walking, talking recruitment poster for terrorists, given his rhetoric and the big picture that Greg's talking about.
In what way?
Well, when he goes after saying, oh, we're not going to allow Muslims in the country.
Well, he said it was a temporary ban on Muslim immigration until we figure out the vetting process, and then open it up again. By the way, do terrorists need any more reason to kill us than they already have? I mean, because Donald Trump says that they've become more angry? I don't think so. I think it's the Western ideology that they're going after, not because Donald Trump says hold off on immigration. Look, these were all talking points. This is stuff we've heard for the past year.
You don't think there's
nothing new in that?
No, hold on.
Tell me something new that we learned last night.
No. I don't have to show you anything new. I'm just saying I don't think most Americans, even Trump supporters, think Donald Trump really knows a lot about how to combat terrorism.
I'll tell you who doesn't know a lot about terrorism is President Obama, and he's proven that over the last 8 years. Right. Remember, he said, I want to lead from behind. He said, well, let's pull out
He never said, I want to lead from behind.
Let's pull out of Afghanistan and Iraq. JV team. He's failed on every level as far as counter-terror all the way through. And if you point to bin Laden, that wasn't Obama's administration that got bin Laden.
It wasn't.
That was the Bush administration.
Oh,
that
my
set up
God.
the kill shot again. And,
Oh,
and
please.
Obama took the kill shot.
I can't
but,
believe. You see, up to
but
then,
they lined it up.
Up to then, I was listening to you. But goodness gracious, you went overboard. But I got to say, I don't understand how you cannot acknowledge that people worry that all of his rhetoric is absent any specifics differing from what Obama is doing to combat ISIS. What do you
Right.
think?
Okay, I'm gonna help out Juan, but
Yeah.
you're probably
Help
still
me
gonna be
out.
confused. I mean, the problem is when you look at the facts, and this is what Greg is talking about too. They don't measure up. Yes, it was a great speech. I'm a student of rhetoric and communications and public speaking. In that sense, I loved it.
Right.
But when you look at people suffering, when you look at the fears of terrorism that we have in this country, the fact that we've been hit in Orlando, the fact that we've been hit in San Bernardino, the fact that our allies in Europe have been hit repeatedly, and look at just France in just the last even few weeks, how many times they've been hit, people are concerned. And so you can't look to the measure of Obama's success and then say a third term, essentially, for Hillary Clinton when they have failed in that area. And they've also failed, I think, in terms of the
So
economy.
when you
The
hear-
middle class is not better off. African Americans and minorities,
I think the economy
people in
is
lower
doing pretty good.
socioeconomic groups are not better off.
I think
Juan,
the economy
let's
is
get this
doing better.
straight.
Yes.
President Obama or Hillary Clinton did not kill bin Laden. We all know it was Ted Cruz's father.
Oh, I thought that was the Kennedy assassin. But you know what? I'm slow to catch up.
Yes.
I'm about to get behind. Because obviously the right-wing conspiracy
Watch
theories
Alex Jones.
keep flying. Okay, Alex Jones has something
He's
there.
amazing.